I never thought I'd be the guy checking my wife's phone. But here I am, sitting in our daughter's nursery at 3 a.m., wondering how everything went so wrong. When Mia was born 8 months ago, I thought we'd finally made it. Sarah had quit her job during the pregnancy, and I picked up every overtime shift I could at the construction site to cover the bills. I didn't mind the long days. Seeing her hold Mia for the first time made it all worthwhile. But then the cracks started showing. At first, Sarah's mood swings were small. She would snap if I forgot to take out the trash or left a dish in the sink. I chalked it up to stress, new mom hormones, and all that, but it kept getting worse. One night, I came home late after a double shift, and she screamed at me for buying the wrong brand of diapers, as if I had set the house on fire. I stood there holding the groceries, too tired to even defend myself. I started doing the night feedings because Sarah said she was exhausted, never mind that I was operating heavy machinery on 4 hours of sleep. During a safety briefing, my foreman pulled me aside after I dozed off and warned me that one more incident would mean he couldn't cover for me. I nodded, apologized, and picked up a case of energy drinks on the way home. Then, 3 weeks ago, the girls' nights began. Every Friday, Sarah would leave around 7 p.m., saying she needed a break from the baby, and she'd come back at 2 a.m. with her makeup smeared, smelling of tequila and someone else's cologne. I wanted to believe her when she said they were just blowing off steam. Claire's divorce had been messy, and Sarah wanted to be there for her. But the way she slumped onto the couch, avoiding eye contact, made my stomach twist. Last Friday was different. She stumbled in, heels in hand, and passed out on the bed. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand, and though I'd never invaded her privacy before, something primal took over. The text from an unsaved number said that room 214 was amazing and asked if it would happen again next week. My hands shook so much that the phone clattered to the floor. When Sarah woke up and saw my face, she accused me of spying on her. She slept on the couch that night, and I didn't sleep at all. The next morning, I told Sarah that Mia had a pediatrician appointment, but instead I drove to a lab downtown. The DNA test cost $300, nearly a full day's pay, but I needed to know. When Sarah found the receipt in my truck, she collapsed into sobs, repeatedly asking how I could do this to us as if I had betrayed her. Then, in a quieter tone, she threatened that she would take her away from me. I had never heard her voice so cold. I have been sleeping on the floor of Mia's nursery since then. Sarah oscillates between silence and desperate apologies. She blames postpartum fog, saying she hasn't been herself. Part of me wants to believe her. But 2 days ago, I found a hotel keycard in her jacket pocket, and the date stamped on it matched a night she'd supposedly been consoling Claire. So I called Claire, not to accuse, but to thank her for being there. After a long pause, she mentioned that she hadn't seen Sarah since Mia's baptism. When I confronted Sarah, she claimed that Claire was jealous of our perfect family, and her voice wavered just enough for me to doubt myself. The DNA results came back yesterday. Mia's mine. I sat in the lab's parking lot and cried for 20 minutes straight, but the relief evaporated quickly. Even if she's my blood, how do I raise her in a house built on lies? Sarah's mom called this morning. She doesn't know about the texts or the keycard, only that I'm stressing Sarah out and abandoning them. Meanwhile, Sarah is offering to quit drinking, go to counseling, whatever it takes. I agreed to talk tonight, but honestly, I'm stalling. My lawyer told me to document everything, saying that infidelity matters here, but that I need proof. So here I am, watching the monitor as Mia sleeps. An hour ago, Sarah texted asking if we could talk tonight and said she would cook my favorite meal. I used to love her lasagna, but now the thought of sitting across from her and pretending we can fix this makes me nauseous. But I'll go. I'll smile, nod, and take in every detail, because Mia's crib is the only thing in this house that still feels real, and I'd tear down the world before I let anyone take her from me. Maybe I'm the asshole for not trying harder. Maybe Sarah's right, that this is just a phase. But when the person you love looks at you every day and turns into a stranger, you stop recognizing yourself too. I don't know what happens next. All I know is that her stuffed owl is in the diaper bag, ready to go. Just in case. Now for the first update. 2 weeks ago, I posted about finding texts from another man on my wife Sarah's phone. I didn't think things could get any worse, but I was wrong about predicting chaos. She cooked lasagna the night I got back from my brother's place. Candles lit, and she wore her black dress, the same one from our anniversary last year. It all felt like a distorted echo of the life we once had. Then she handed me her phone, her eyes red-rimmed yet steady, telling me to look through everything because she had nothing to hide. Her voice cracked on the last word, and for a moment, I almost believed her. When I checked, the texts from Paul, the number from the hotel, were gone, deleted without a trace. But she had forgotten about Venmo, where a $150 payment to him, marked with a kissy face emoji, waited for me to see. I snapped photos of the screen with numb hands. Sarah stood in the doorway with her arms crossed, as if trying to keep herself together. When I told her I needed space, she crumpled and whispered that I was really choosing to walk away. I didn't answer, because what could you say when someone has already rewritten the story? I packed Mia's bottles and onesies, while Sarah sat silently on the bed. The only sound was Mia cooing in her carrier, completely unaware of the tension. I gathered the monitor, her stuffed owl, and the last can of formula from the pantry. Sarah didn't move until the door clicked shut. Later, peering through the peephole, I saw her sink to the floor with her face in her hands. I almost went back. My brother's garage apartment smelled of motor oil and baby wipes. He had set up a crib next to his tool bench, claiming it was only temporary, though neither of us really believed that. Mia developed a rash 2 days in, angry red patches on her cheeks. Behind my back, Sarah's mom called the pediatrician and accused me of neglect. The doctor took one look and explained that it was eczema, common in infants, but Sarah's mom still glared at me as if I had bathed Mia in poison ivy. On the 4th day, Sarah appeared unannounced, pounding on the garage door and screaming accusations of kidnapping. Neighbors lingered on their porches with their phones out, and Mia woke up wailing. Sarah shouted that I couldn't just take her away, her mascara running down her face. I stood frozen until my brother stepped between us, quietly asking if I really wanted to do this in front of the baby. Sarah left soon after, whispering that the baby would never forgive me for what had happened. The lawyer advised me to file for separation immediately. Later that night, when I checked our joint account, it was empty, $3,000 gone. The next morning, Sarah's dad called and insisted that I end things, promising that they would make sure she came home, as if I were a dog needing to be leashed. He didn't know about Paul, or the Venmo transfer, or the way Sarah's hands shook when she lied about Claire. Last week, my foreman cut my hours, blaming safety concerns, though I knew the real reason was that I had fallen asleep while mixing concrete, prompting the crew to tease me about being a zombie dad. Now I'm down to 20 hours a week, and the lawyer's retainer fee costs more than my rent. My brother lent me $2,000, but his wife's side-eye at dinner made it clear that it was the last check. Every day, Sarah took Mia to her parents' house, where they had set up a nursery with pink curtains, a rocking chair, and all the things I could never give her. At Mia's checkup, Sarah confronted me in the parking lot and told me that I wasn't her father. Things escalated quickly, and the pediatrician's office ended up calling security when she started yelling. I recorded everything on my phone, my thumb trembling over the screen. Her Instagram was filled with soft filters and hashtags like single mom life and survivor, and college friends left comments praising her strength and insisting that I had never deserved her. One photo showed Mia in a frilly dress I had never seen before, with a caption celebrating her as a little warrior, just like her mama. I hated that I still noticed how beautiful Sarah looked in the sunlight. Last night, she texted, insisting that Paul meant nothing and that I was tearing Mia's family apart over a mistake. I didn't reply because there wasn't anything left to say. Her Venmo history was a graveyard of kissy-face payments, 3 in the past month alone. My lawyer said it was enough evidence to prove a pattern of financial abandonment, especially since Sarah had drained our account. I'm sitting in my car outside the lawyer's office, with Mia in the back seat, chewing on her owl's wing. The sun is too bright, and my hands won't stop sweating. Sarah doesn't know that I'm filing for temporary custody today. Part of me still hopes she'll wake up, apologize, and become the person I married, while the other part knows that person is gone. I keep thinking about that lasagna night, about how Sarah's perfume smelled just like it did on our first date, and how she held out her phone as though it was a peace offering, not realizing that the war had already started. I miss her. I miss us. But Mia is learning to crawl on my brother's concrete floor, and I can't allow that to be her entire world. Finally, the lawyer waved me in. Mia giggled when I unbuckled her seatbelt, as if this were an adventure. Maybe it was, and maybe someday I'll tell her just how hard we fought to keep her. Right now, though, I'm just a guy with a diaper bag and a folder of screenshots, praying that it's enough. Now for the second update. It's been a month since my last update. A lot of people asked if things got better. They didn't. They just became clearer. The judge granted me temporary custody after I presented the hotel key and Venmo receipts. Sarah screamed in the courthouse parking lot, accusing me of being a soulless liar, loud enough for a bailiff to step outside. I buckled Mia into her car seat, her tiny fingers gripping my thumb as if she knew I needed the anchor. Her face looked raw, with streaks of makeup trailing down her neck. I wanted to hate her, but all I felt was tired. 3 days later, her mom suddenly cornered me at the grocery store. I was holding Mia in one arm while reaching for diapers with the other when she appeared in the aisle. In a low hiss, she labeled me a deadbeat while blocking my cart. Mia began fussing, her small body tensing against my chest. I tried to step around her, but she ended up spitting on my windshield as I loaded the groceries. That wet, angry slap echoed in my mind throughout the day. I filed a police report, though it felt pointless. What is a piece of paper compared to a lifetime of whispered judgment from her family? Sarah's first supervised visit turned out badly. She arrived late, her eyes wide and reeking of vodka masked with mint gum. Mia, usually all smiles, scrunched her face and turned toward me when Sarah tried to take her. The supervisor made notes, the scratching of her pen overpowering Sarah's mumbling reassurances that she was all right. Midway through the visit, Mia started crying out with the guttural wail she only uses when overwhelmed. Sarah simply stared at her hands. Its chipped nail polish and trembling fingers spoke volumes, until the supervisor ended the session. I drove home in silence, with Mia asleep in the mirror, wondering when Sarah became a stranger. Losing my construction job was no surprise. My foreman pulled me aside after I mixed a batch of concrete incorrectly, twice, and remarked that I had once been dependable, all while avoiding eye contact. I wanted to explain that I hadn't slept more than 3 hours in months, and that my daughter's mother was determined to erase me, but instead, I just nodded and handed over my hard hat. That night, I signed up to drive for Uber, carefully installing Mia's car seat in the back. It wasn't long before Sarah's friends began targeting me. Fake one-star reviews started appearing, with comments claiming that the driver made them feel uncomfortable and that the car reeked of desperation. I kept driving regardless. Later, Claire found me at a gas station, of all places. Mia was busy gumming on a teether in the passenger seat when Claire tapped on my window and apologized, her eyes darting briefly toward Mia. She explained that Sarah had threatened to expose secrets about her and someone else, and then she handed me a folded letter bearing her signature before hurrying off. The paper felt unexpectedly heavy in my hands. My lawyer later described it as a smoking gun, but all I could think was how small alliances form amid the wreckage. The court ordered Sarah to attend parenting classes and undergo a drug test. She arrived at the next visit, still reeking of alcohol, her hair greasy and wearing the same sweater from 3 days earlier. Mia recoiled again, burying her face in my neck. The supervisor's report was brutal, noting that the mother had exhibited impaired judgment and that the child appeared visibly distressed. Without a word, Sarah left, her boots scuffing against the pavement. That night, her dad called with a voice that tried to sound calm while demanding that I drop all charges in exchange for them handling her behavior, as if we were negotiating the sale of a used car. I pictured him in his study, surrounded by leather-bound books and framed diplomas, never once considering that his daughter might be the problem. I refused, even as Mia babbled in the background, practicing her new word, dada, dada, dada. The call ended shortly after. Driving for Uber wasn't cutting it, so I took a night shift at a warehouse loading boxes under flickering fluorescents. My lawyer even subpoenaed my earnings in an attempt to prove I couldn't support Mia. Joke's on them. The job came with health insurance, the first I'd had in a year. I texted my brother a thumbs up, and he replied with a photo of Mia wearing a tiny hard hat while sitting in his lap at the garage. Sarah's GoFundMe campaign hit me as the lowest blow of all. It painted the picture of a single mother fighting to rescue my baby, featuring a photo from Mia's baptism with Sarah's smile bathed in soft light and virtue. Comments flooded in, with supporters saying she was incredibly strong and that all men were trash, while my cousin donated $5 along with a message hinting at a dark detail about room 214. I quickly closed the tab and ended up vomiting in the sink. Lately, Mia started giving full arms-around-your-neck hugs instead of just leaning in. She does it whenever I'm stressed, almost as if she somehow senses my anxiety. The court date is in 2 weeks. My lawyer remains optimistic, though I've stopped placing much trust in hope. Sarah has been quiet, no late-night calls or drive-bys, and that silence scares me even more than her screaming once did. I packed Mia's stuffed owl for the hearing. It's missing an eye and still carries the faint odor of formula, but she refuses to sleep without it. The night before the trial, I sat on the floor of our borrowed apartment, watching her chase a ball of lint. Her laugh rang out with pure unfiltered joy. I used to wonder what she would think of me when she grew up. Now I know I will tell her the truth, every ugly shard of it, so that she never settles for someone who makes her doubt her own worth. This morning, I received a text from Sarah saying that I had won, but I didn't respond because winning was never the point. I'm not a hero. I'm just a guy who learned to function on caffeine and panic, who still checks the locks twice, and who cries in the shower so Mia won't see. But I'm her dad, and that's enough. We go to court tomorrow. No matter what happens, her crib will be safe, however hard I have to work to make that true. Now for the final update. It's been 3 months since my last update. A lot of you asked how things ended. They didn't really have an ending. They just settled, like dust after a storm. You sweep it up, but the grit stays under your nails. The judge granted me primary custody, and when the words were spoken, Sarah's face fell apart. She didn't even look at Mia. She just buried her face in her hands as if she could push the tears back in. I held Mia tighter, her little body warming against my chest. Part of me wanted to say something, anything, to ease her pain, but another part remembered the hotel keycard, the Venmo receipts, and how Mia used to cry after visits. So I stayed quiet. A week later, Sarah's parents disowned her. Their love had always been conditional on her being the perfect daughter. When the details of her affair became public, leaked by Claire, I believe, they sent her a text calling her an embarrassment and changed the locks. The next day, she showed up at my job with mascara running down her cheeks, pleading for another chance. Security ended up escorting her out while Mia napped in the break room. I watched from the window, my reflection split by the blinds, wondering when we stopped being a family that included our daughter. Around that time, Mia's eczema cleared up. The pediatrician said that consistency was key, using the same detergent, following the same routine, and singing the same bedtime song every night. I hummed that song to her, even when my throat burned from exhaustion. Sarah missed 3 supervised visits in a row. The court reduced her visits to once a month, but she still arrived late, reeking of hand sanitizer and regret. The last time, Mia toddled toward her, then froze mid-step and crawled back to me. Sarah didn't resist. She just looked at her chipped nails and muttered that she hated me. The supervisor made a note of everything. I eventually landed a better job doing warehouse inventory with steady hours and health insurance. I moved into a rental with yellow walls and a patchy lawn. Mia's room now has sunflowers stenciled above her crib, which I painted myself at 2 a.m. with drip staining my shoes because I read online that bright colors help with development. Soon afterward, Sarah's lawyer quit. She began sending me rambling emails at 3 a.m., accusing me of turning Mia against her. I forwarded those messages to my lawyer and then blocked her address. Last month, I ran into Paul's wife at Target. Mia was sitting in the shopping cart, chewing on a teething ring with drool soaking her onesie. The woman recognized me, hesitated for a moment, then thanked me for the Venmo screenshots she had seen. It turned out that Sarah hadn't been his first affair. Her divorce had just been finalized the week before. We stood there like strangers by the cereal aisle, silently sharing the betrayal. Neither of us asked about Mia or about Paul. Sarah is living in a motel now. One time, I got a call from a blocked number, and her voice was slurred when she said that I had won and asked if I was happy. I hung up, deleted the voicemail, and scrubbed Mia's high chair until my knuckles burned. Happy wasn't really the word I felt. I was relieved, sure, and terrified too, but happiness had become like a language I no longer understood. My brother and his wife help babysit Mia while I work. They even taught her to high-five, her tiny palms smacking theirs with surprising force. Not long after, Sarah's mom sent a birthday card, accompanied by a crisp $100 bill. There was no note, just Mia's name written in shaky cursive. I slipped it into her college fund, right behind her vaccination record. I joined a single parents SMA group on Claire's suggestion and ended up meeting a woman named Elena, who had fought her ex for custody after he drained their accounts to fund his crypto hustle. Sometimes we grab coffee while Mia smears muffin crumbs on the table, and we talk about mediation tactics and pediatricians. It isn't dating, it's survival. Sarah made one last attempt in court, accusing me of brainwashing Mia. The judge dismissed the accusation before I could even open my binder. At that moment, Mia let out a shout for me that echoed off the benches, and Sarah didn't even look up. Full custody was finalized last week, but Sarah didn't show up. Her motel room was empty, with the key left on the bed. Rumor has it she moved to Arizona, or maybe Oregon, or perhaps she just vanished altogether. Yesterday, Mia took her first steps, lunging toward a stuffed owl that was missing one eye. I caught her before she could fall, and she laughed with all her gums and mischief, reminding me that I hadn't checked the locks once that day. Tonight, Mia fell asleep on my chest, her breathing matching mine. The baby monitor was quiet, no static, no muffled cries. For the first time in a year, I felt like I could finally take a full breath. It didn't change anything, but it was enough. I'm not a hero by any stretch of the word. Heroes don't forget to buy diapers, don't cry in the shower, and don't spend sleepless nights wondering if their kid will hate them someday. But at least Mia is safe. Her crib is sturdy, and her sunflowers, though crooked, are bright. That's all that matters now.